Krishna, dear devotees. I would like to welcome you all to His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj's daily online class. Thank you all for joining. My humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Maharaj. My humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Maharaj, we shall be continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 19.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay.
Yes. Can you see the verse, Maharaj?
Wait a minute. I'm not there yet. I only got a partial screen. I
Okay,
need,
let
I need to get a full screen here somehow.
me share it again, Maharaj.
You're all right. It's from my side. Okay, we're there. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 19th chapter, the appearance of Sukadeva Goswami, verse number 22. Ashrutata Rishi Ganavacha Parikshit Saman Madhu Chud Guru Chavalikam Abhyasatainam Abhinadya Yuktan Susru Samanas Charitani Vishnu. All that was spoken by the great sages was very sweet to hear, full of meaning and appropriately presented as perfectly true. So after hearing them, Maharaj Parikshit, desiring to hear of the activities of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, congratulated the great sages. Next verse. Samam gata sarvata eva sarvam vedanyata murtindaras tripriste nehata namutra chakasya narta rite paranugraham atmashilam. Translation. The king said, O great sages, you have all very kindly assembled here, having coming from all parts of the universe. You are all as good as the supreme knowledge personified, who resides in the planet above the three worlds, Satyaloka. Consequently, are naturally inclined to do good to others. But for this, you have no interest, either in this life or in the next. Srila Prabhupada's purport. 6 kinds of opulences, namely wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, renunciation, are all originally the different attributes pertaining to the absolute personality of Godhead. The living beings, who are part and parcel entities of the Supreme Being, have all these attributes partially up to the full strength of 78%. In the material world, these attributes, up to 78% of the Lord's attributes, are covered by the material energy as the sun is covered by a cloud. The covering strength of the sun is very dim compared to the original glare, and similarly, the original color of the living being with such attributes becomes almost extinct. There are 3 planetary systems, namely the lower worlds, the immediate worlds, the intermediate worlds, and the upper worlds. Human beings on earth are situated in the beginning of the intermediate worlds. The living beings like Brahma and his contemporaries live in the upper worlds, of which the topmost planet is Satyaloka. In Satyaloka, the inhabitants are fully cognizant of Vedic wisdom, and thus the mystic cloud of material energy is cleared. Therefore, they are known as the Vedas personified. Such persons, being fully aware of knowledge, both mundane and transcendental, have no interest in either the mundane or the transcendental worlds. They are practically desireless devotees. In the mundane world, they have nothing to achieve, and in the transcendental world, they are full in themselves. And why do they come to the mundane world? They descend to different planets as messiahs by the order of the Lord to deliver the fallen souls. On earth, they come down to do good to people of the world in different circumstances, under different climatic influences. They have nothing to do with this world save and except reclaim the fallen souls rotting in material existence, who are deluded by material energy. Om Gyan Timidam Dasya Gana Jana Salakaya Chaksun Mulitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Name Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paschyatyare Satarine Panchakalpa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, Dinanath, bring it up higher so the purport is framed. No, the other way, not that way, the other way. The other way. Go down the page. We want to see the purport right there. Stop right there. So, a nice description of those who are transcendentally situated. They have transcendental means above the material. So, although their bodies may be in the material world, they are not in the material world because the material world is a particular type of energy. That is three energies that combine together to make more energies, which are the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But although situated in the material world, their consciousness is situated in transcendence, above the material world. Wherever your consciousness is, that's where you are. You may be sitting in one place, but if your consciousness is in another place, then that's where you are. Prabhupada said you could be sitting here, and then when you think of some place thousands of miles away, you take yourself to that realm simply by your consciousness. Well, physical proximity doesn't really indicate one's position. One's position is based on consciousness. The pure consciousness is Krishna consciousness. Here we're seeing about the sages who they have transcendental consciousness, that they're above the three worlds, modes of material nature. That means they're situated at least in the Brahmana effulgence, or even higher, Paramatma, and perhaps some of them are absorbed in Bhagavan realization. And there's a combination of many sages there on different levels of spiritual attainment. But in any case, they have nothing to do with the material world. And because they are situated in a transcendental consciousness, they simply apply their transcendental consciousness here to doing good to those who are suffering in the material world. Anyone who's in the material world who is trying to enjoy this material world is actually in the mood of suffering because there's no enjoyment. As it says, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, from the highest planet to the lowest, all are places of misery where impeded birth and death take place. He also talks about the temporary nature of this world, which is full of misery. So we're getting these statements coming from the supreme authority himself, Lord Shri Krishna. So anyone who thinks that there's happiness in the material world, Prabhupada says they're a fool. They have no intelligence. They're chasing after something that has no value. And therefore, they're suffering. They're wasting time, they're wasting their energy trying to pursue something that cannot give them any real benefit. Temporary relief from material suffering is, at best, called material happiness. But real happiness is on the transcendental platform. Real happiness is the soul's connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so the fallen conditioned souls are suffering, and therefore the great souls they're thinking how to save these fallen conditioned souls, and that's their business. It's called paropaka. Paropaka means to do good to others. And Srila Prabhupada has established this movement on that same principle of doing good to others. He says the devotees must become Krishna conscious and give Krishna conscious to others. And giving Krishna consciousness also increases one's own Krishna conscious. So one should not mistakenly think that, well, I'll wait till I become fully Krishna conscious and then I can give something to others. One can become fully Krishna conscious by giving things to others. So whatever level of practice you are on, you can use that knowledge and that position to spread the glories of the Lord and relieve the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls. Fallen means they're not in their proper position. They belong in the spiritual world, but they're here in the material world. So they're in what we say, a lesser state of existence, which is full of suffering. And material energy is by nature diluting, and therefore many of them think they're all right. Just like a person who is intoxicated, he might think everything is fine, but anyone could see that he is under the influence of some intoxicants, and therefore he cannot act properly or even think properly. So in the same way, the conditioned souls are there. So here, the glories of the great souls, they take their time, the energy, their knowledge, and they try to do good to the fallen conditioned souls in this world. And everyone practically in this world is in that same category. They don't know who they are. They don't know what is the goal of life. And therefore, they're pursuing a false type of, we say, goal in life. The goal is somehow to accumulate material things and try to enjoy those material things. In this explanation, there are two faults. One is we can't enjoy anything that is contrary to our nature or different in our nature. We are spiritual. We can't enjoy materially. It's like taking a fish and putting it on the water, taking him out of the water and putting him on the land and giving him all kinds of nice arrangements on the land. But because he's out of his element, he'll die after some time. So because we are pure spiritual energy, Jiver Supai Krishnera Nityadas, we cannot enjoy something that is contrary to our nature. We can use these things in order to serve the Lord, but enjoyment is meant for the Lord and not for those who try to enjoy separate from the Lord. And the other aspect of it is that because things in this world are always changing, whatever one achieves, they'll lose in due course of time. So it says that one who's actually intelligent and knows their best interests. What is that verse? um, Tasyaiva hetu pradito na kovito na labhyate tad pamata uparyada. Tad labhyate tad dukanavam anusukam kalena sarvatra gambira ram hasa. The first part of the verse says that one who is philosophically inclined and knows their best interest does not try for any position in this material world, because they know any position in this material world is simply temporary and full of various types of miseries. That comes by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. One awakens that what is actually real knowledge. So the great saints and sages, they come. Some of them come directly from the spiritual world. Some of them become self-realized by their efforts in this material world to attain that position of self-realization. But their concern is for the fallen conditioned souls. There are two kinds of sages, actually. There's called the Ghostanandis and the Bhajananandis. The Bhajananandis, as is described in their own label, they are concerned with their own bhajan. They go to secluded places. They don't want to be around the common people. They go to mountains or they go to caves. They go to secluded places and they practice various types of meditation, austerities, and sometimes they even do some kind of homas like that. They're only concerned with their own spiritual development. They're called Bhajananandis. They're also sages, but sages who are focused on their own. But then there's the Ghostanandis. The Ghostanandis are those who become engaged in devotional service at a certain point level. Then they take that knowledge and that experience and try to teach the fallen souls what is actually happiness and how to attain it. They're called Ghostanandis. So our movement started from the Brahma Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya is coming in the line of Lord Brahma, as it says here. Brahma is given some glorification here. That person who is above all of the other persons who exist in Satyaloka. Here it says the inhabitants of Satyalokas are fully cognizant of the Vedic wisdom, and thus the mystic cloud of material energy is cleared. Therefore, they are known as the Vedas personified. Such persons, being fully aware of knowledge, both mundane and transcendental, have no interest in either the mundane or transcendental world. Well, these are the tapasis, yogis. Some of them are actually practicing bhakti yoga. There's a various combination who had come to see Maharaj Parikshit in his last days to congratulate him and to offer whatever knowledge they could to push him on his way towards the goal of life, back home, back to Godhead. So some of these personalities, as we say, come from the spiritual worlds. They are called, let's see, it's a type of avatar that descends. They are called Shakti Vesh avatar. There's two types of Shakti Vesh avatars. Ones who come from the spiritual world to do the work of the Lord, such as Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada has indicated himself that in one of his own explanations that he was with Krishna in the spiritual world. And Krishna told him to come to the material world to preach Krishna conscious. His initial reaction to Krishna's request was he didn't want to go. Anyone who's in the spiritual world doesn't want to come to the material world. But Krishna wanted him to come to do the work of preaching, and so he readily agreed. So that's called uh, direct Shaktiveshar avatars. There's those who are indirect. Indirect is they are conditioned souls who come to the material world. They're highly advanced spiritually already when they come, and then they perfect their life even further through the process of pure devotional service. And they are also empowered to save the conditioned souls. They become fully self-realized once they practice in the material world. Well, there's two levels. So we are fortunate we have Srila Prabhupada. His guidance in the terms of the knowledge he gives us and the practical understanding how to use that knowledge is very perfect in how to execute devotional service. Those who think Srila Prabhupada was some ordinary person who became Krishna conscious by his own efforts do not understand his position or who he actually was. It's explained that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission unfolded towards the beginning of the Kali Yuga. Actually, not exactly at the beginning, after 4,500 years of Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya came. And he came with his desire. He wanted to show special mercy to the conditioned souls, to give everyone and anyone who has the slightest bit of desire the opportunity to practice pure devotional service through the congregational glorification of the holy name. Srila Prabhupada was described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Narada Muni when the Lord was talking to Narada, saying, soon my Sanapati Bhakta will come and he will chase down those who flee from the Vedic culture. And that Sanapati. Sanapati means general or best of all the bhaktas. So that reference is connected directly to Srila Prabhupada. And there's two other references also. One by Krishna himself to Mother Ganga from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, explaining that after 5,000 years, my mantra Upasika will come and spread the teachings of the chanting of the holy name to all corners of the globe. And then the last one was done by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur when he had a vision during the time he was looking in the direction of the yoga pit, the appearance place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In that vision, he saw people from all of the five races holding hands and dancing together, singing Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana. And so these three predictions all center around Srila Prabhupada's coming to this world to do this work. And he came at the perfect time. And that was also ordained. He came when there were people who were rejecting everything on the material level and looking for some type of alternate lifestyle, different from what they grew up, different from what the society was offering them. They wanted something better, something different, something. Of course, many of them were misdirected by the hedonist activity, hedonist mentality. But still, because of that rejection and Srila Prabhupada's timely appearance right at that same time, Srila Prabhupada picked these persons up and educated them and took care of them on a personal level also and engaged them in devotional service. So that was ordained by the Lord. Nothing happens by accident, and especially on the spiritual level. So the Lord Chaitanya is Namo Mahavadanaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Goda Tristainaha. He's Karuna Avatar. He's the most merciful manifestation. And he empowers anyone who has the slightest bit of desire to serve on his behalf to preach the glories of the word of the Lord. So sometimes we might think, how can I preach? I don't have so much knowledge. I'm not very good speaker, or whatever reason we may come up with to deny the fact that I should go out and preach. The Lord Chaitanya is so kind that he empowers anyone and everyone who has the slightest bit desire to serve in the mood of reaching to conditioned souls. This is why he came personally. This is why many of the incarnations of the Lord also appear in this world simply to save the fallen conditioned souls. Okay, so these are some things that glorify the great souls and those who are connected with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually have a responsibility to satisfy the Lord by becoming his instrument. He actually says that also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the 9th chapter of Adi Leela. He explains that I am let's see, what did he call himself? I'm a fruit salesman, I think, something like that. I'm a vendor, I'm a merchant, and I have this storehouse full of very, very tasty and juicy fruits. And these are the fruits of love of God. And I'm trying to distribute these fruits, but I'm only one person. How much can I distribute? But I'm tasting them. I'm seeing they're very sweet. And I want to share these fruits with everyone. But how much can I do? So he's asking, yeah, I'm only a gardener. Thank you. How much can I actually do? And then he's begging all of us who come in his line to take up the process of preaching Krishna consciousness to the conditioned souls. And if we do that, then the perfection of our Krishna consciousness will eventually develop. Because then special mercy comes to that soul who gives Krishna consciousness to others. And that special mercy qualifies them to go back home, back to Godhead. Okay, so these are some things that we can think about.
Thank you, Maharaj. So, dear devotees, can open up for Q&A. But before I do that, a small humble request to make the session more interactive, personal. If you can switch on your cameras where you are, and if you're in a position to do so, please do it. Thank you very much. And you can ask a question by raising a hand or by putting it in the chat window where I can read it on behalf of you if you are in a location where you can't do so. Thank you. Maharaj, I have a question. You rightly mentioned we had discussed this point. It's a comment rather than a question that we have to preach what we know. We shouldn't help. We shouldn't hold back. Our mind tells us various reasons. My mind, especially Maharaj, tells me various reasons, maybe not to give a class, or maybe not to do this, or maybe not to do that. So it is very important that you re-emphasizing the message that we have to preach to what we know, and we have to come out of that comfort zone. So thank you, Maharaj, for reinstating that message again today.
There's no comfort zone in this world. That's just a mental concoction. Who's comfortable?
And Maharaj, the other thing was a question. I was just looking at the notes. Why is it that, Maharaj, there is an inclination within our society to chant different types of mantras apart from the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? Is it because we believe Prabhupada hasn't given everything, or is it because it's different tactics to attract people to Krishna consciousness?
If we hear from Prabhupada and also from his devotees who are practicing, we know that Prabhupada gave the Hare Krishna mantra, but he also gave other mantras. But then again, sometimes we take mantras that are not given by Prabhupada or the Acharyas, and we include those. And therefore, we should discriminate. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda is also considered to be the Maha Mantra. That should be chanted regularly also. So there are many mantras we can chant. We can chant the prayers of the Brahma Samhita prayers, which are very powerful mantras also. We can chant the glories of the great souls, or His Holiness Shiva Ram Maharaj has published one book about all of the different mantras that we can recommend chant. There are many, but we should focus primarily on the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And these mantras can be applied at different times. But Maha Mantra is our development and advancement in Krishna consciousness. So that should be primary. But there are certain mantras that we don't really need to chant, which maybe are glorifications of the demigods or different mantras in order to gain some material benefits. These things are not approved by the great acharyas nor by Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, you just have to know.
Amritanam Mataji, you have a question? You can please unmute and go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, how do we come to the point where happiness and distress become one?
Well, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita from the 6th chapter, verse number 7. I think that you can go to that verse. I think there's a nice Bhagavad Gita 6:7, I think it is. Jitamam prashantasyat paramatma samanhitaha sitnosna sukadukeshu tatamana pramanayo. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained Shrakulab. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. One has to conquer the mind and fix the mind on the process of devotional service. When one does that, one can connect with the super soul directly, and one has attained complete peace. So here it gives you the statement. You can go down the page, you can see some statements in the purport. So therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled to the yoga system, one should be considered to have reached the destination. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictations of the Supreme. Devotees of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, namely distress. This state is practical samadhi or absorption in the Supreme. Yeah. And when you become fixed, your consciousness becomes fixed in devotional service, then the mind is controlled and it's conquered. And then you're connected with Krishna in the heart. And the one to do that, it says here, one has to abide by superior dictation. That means one has to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Conquering the mind is not so easy because the mind is chanchala. But if you practice and you detach yourself from the activities of material happiness or material life, then the mind will gradually become subdued and be focused on the essence.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
You study this verse and read the purport over. You can get,
Yes,
and there are other verses also, but this one is pretty much the key verse.
thank you. Sure. Hare Krishna.
Is it clear?
Yes, I think there are many things, but I would like to study this verse before I go to any further follow-ups.
Okay.
Thank you.
Study is that you have to conquer your mind. The mind will go here and there. That means the
Yes,
mind is controlling you. You have to control the mind. You can't let the mind control you.
yes. For how I am seeing is when we engage ourselves in the process which Prabhupada has given us, we can control the mind.
That's the process, yeah, but it's not so easy. Turn to the Srimad Bhagavatam, Dinanath, 5th canto, 6th chapter, verse number, I think, 3. Yeah, somebody read these verses.
Just the
Krishna.
translation. Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Just the translation,
Yeah.
or okay. All the learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva, even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Saubhari Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection.
Yeah, go to the next verse.
An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramours, and it sometimes happened that her husband is violently killed by her paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, and greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi.
Next verse.
The mind is the root cause of lust, anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. Combined, these constitute bondage to fruitive activity. What learned man would put faith in the mind?
Well, these are some direct things to show. The mind's not so easy to control. But go down to the next verse. Let's see. No, this one, okay, we can stop there. This changes the. So, yeah, there's many verses, and even the previous chapter or actually in the fifth canto, the 17th, not the 17th, fifth canto, 11th chapter also is full of statements on the mind. And there's a lot of statements, so you have to understand to control the mind. Krishna says you have to practice, and you have to detach yourself. If you're still trying to enjoy this material world and trying to control the mind, you cannot control the mind. You have to focus the mind on the spiritual and stop trying to enjoy this material world. Then you can gradually bring the mind under control. And I use the word gradually. It doesn't come so easy because the mind is conditioned to move this way, that way, and go wherever it wants to go at any time it wants to go. At night, we dream. The mind just takes off and goes into some area of existence and creates this scenario based on different thoughts and impressions that we have achieved in a waking state. Now, the mind is always moving, it's always active. When you bring that mind under the lotus feet of the Lord and engage in devotional service, then you can gradually control the mind. And when you can control the mind, then you see so-called happiness and distress in this world are just two opposites of the same thing. That's all. There's no difference. But practice. If you keep good sadhana, chant your rounds very carefully with attention and as much devotion as you can acquiesce, and gradually you can bring that mind under control. If you don't have good sadhana, or regular sadhana, you won't be able to do it. And you see the example given, even Lord Shiva got bewildered. Even Lord Brahma got bewildered. Even Subari Muni, great yogi, he got bewildered. There are so many examples of people who allow their mind to go wherever they want, and then all of a sudden they're in a different situation. So one has to be careful to control the mind. It's simply directing it towards Krishna and devotional service. That's how you control the mind. I can give you a practical statement. You should be always thinking, what can I do next in devotional service? You shouldn't leave any gaps in your day. The mind should always be engaged in some activity. Soon as you leave a gap in your spiritual activity, the mind will fill it in with something material. That's the way it is. Krishna, Arjuna said the mind is chanchala, flickering, unsteady, turbulent, difficult to control. Krishna agreed with him. He said, but if you practice, you can do it. And stop trying to enjoy this material world, then it becomes more and more natural to control the mind. If we're trying to mix oil and water together to get some kind of solution, can't do it because these two things are opposite. We can't try to be materially happy and at the same time spiritually advanced. It's not possible. These two things are contrary. We have to give up this idea that there's any happiness in this material world. You do that by hearing from Srila Prabhupada, by hearing from the great sages, by hearing from Krishna directly. And we can see anytime some situation in the material world can just, destroy us. It's a very dangerous place. I just got a message last night about some person I knew. They had a car accident and died. All of a sudden, they're gone. Well, it's a very dangerous place. So if you allow your mind to go in different places, you're subjecting yourself to the dangers of this material world, or to the illusions of so-called happiness that is presented as enjoyment. So controlling the mind is the key, and I use the word with emphasis, the key to spiritual success. And not controlling the mind is the key to going down in the material tabernacle. Even those who have practiced Krishna consciousness, devotional service for many years, if they slip in controlling the mind, they can also slip in their spiritual life. Prabhupada said, practicing Krishna consciousness is like shaving with a sharp razor. You're inattentive, there is some cut. We can't be inattentive. We always have to connect our mind in relationship to Krishna. You can't think of anything to do, you can always chant Hare Krishna at any time, any place, anywhere. And that controls the mind. So it's not so easy, but it's possible.
Yes, thank you so much for all this insight that you gave. That is why it said unalloyed devotional service. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions, comments, realization about today's topic, verse discussions, or anything else? Amritana Mataji, Shilpesh Prabhu has raised his hand. Please go ahead, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, carrying on this topic of mind, I've heard often, I'm not sure if Srila Prabhupada said it, but I have heard from devotees that our minds can reach every part of the universe. Maybe you could expand on that for us, please.
Yeah, the spiritual mind can. It can go beyond the universe into the spiritual realm. The spiritual mind, which is the real mind, the material mind is a covering over the spiritual mind. It's like the clothing that dresses up the body. The material mind is the conditioned mind. The material mind is the mind that has been engaged in material activities life after life after life. We have the same mind when we came to the material world millions of lives ago. That mind doesn't change. When death means the loss of the physical body, and the subtle body, which includes the mind, the intelligence, and the material sense of self, is carried to the next body. It carries you to the next body, and then you begin again another life. So the same mind is there. So that conditioned mind can go to different places in the universe, but the spiritual mind can. So as you uncover your spiritual mind by gradually destroying the presence of the material mind, then you awaken your you awaken knowledge, and that knowledge is not limited. So yeah, that's true, but not with the material mind. You can't go to all places in the universe because it's limited. It's limited due to its conditioned nature.
Maharaj, is there a difference between our intelligence and the spiritual mind? Is there a difference between our intelligence and the spiritual mind? And
well, there's material intelligence and spiritual intelligence. There's material mind or spiritual mind. The soul has a mind, the soul has intelligence. The soul has a sense of identity. The coverings have the same thing, but they're all connected with the material energy, therefore they're temporary and false. Material intelligence teaches you how to use that feature of the mind in order to further your desires to enjoy in this material world. Spiritual intelligence connects you with the soul, with Krishna in devotional service. You have to understand the coverings of over the spirit soul is all false and ephemeral. And they can dissolve, the effects of these coverings can dissolve through the process of bhakti, which reveals the spiritual mind, which reveals the spiritual intelligence, which reveals our true identity. Material is a covering. That's all it is.
And Maharaj,
You have
do
to
we
purify that your existence by engaging in devotional service. That's all.
And Maharaj, do we sometimes have glimpses of his spiritual intelligence, even though we're covered?
Yeah, when you use your intelligence to serve the Lord, that's you're activating your spiritual intelligence. We do that all the time. But when it becomes full blown, then there's no question. The intelligence constantly directs one towards serving Krishna. Because the intelligence is a discriminating factor. And once the discrimination is purified, then we discriminate how best we can serve Krishna. Just like you can serve Krishna in many ways. So the intelligence will also, in its full state of awakening, will lead one to that way that you can serve Krishna, which is according to your natural identity or your spiritual identity. That's a high state of, that's an advanced state of consciousness. You know who you are, at least there's an indication who you are in the spiritual world, and then you even serve in this material world according to that identity. That's full-blown spiritual consciousness. There are people who are very, very intelligent in this world, and they can do amazing things. They can manipulate the material energies in different ways in order to get some benefit from that manipulation and create some fantastic things. You see, you just watch the technological development that's coming in today's world. It's just phenomenal. How they're taking the subtle aspects of the material energy and turning it into something mechanical or something technological, which can do so many things. And they considered that advancement. But it's material. But spiritual intelligence will direct you towards serving Krishna in different ways.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
And then you say, well, where is spiritual intelligence? It's in the words of the spiritual master. It's in the words of the scriptures. Seeing through the eye of scripture rather than seeing through the eyes of material arrangements. It's very simple. Intelligence directed towards devotional service is spiritual. Intelligence directed towards manipulating this material energy is material. That's a very simple understanding. Purify it first. Use a mantra. You know the mantra? Yeah. Om pushpe pushpe ma pushpe su pushpe pushpe sambhave pushpe chiyava kirne jaham vat swaha. And then put it on there. Pushpe chiyava kirne jaham vat swaha. Just chant Hare Krishna. Okay.
Oh, Maharaj, we are the hour. If there's no further questions, is it okay to conclude today's session?
You're in charge.
Your devotee's last chance to ask a question. Until tomorrow.
Okay, we got
Sridevi Mataji.
right now it's complete. Sri Devi has come forward. Okay.
Please accept my most humble obeisances, Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. To ask maybe a very, I'm very simple-minded, so I'm just trying to understand this. In Satya Loka, the purport says, the inhabitants are fully cognizant of Vedic wisdom, and the mystic cloud of material energy is cleared, therefore they are Vedas personified. But still, Satya Loka is considered to be part of the material world. So how is it that these transcendently situated sages are still in the material world?
There's so many transcendental personalities who are here in the material world. You can go, you just walk around Mayapur, you can find a lot of them. It's because the body is there doesn't mean the consciousness is there. Yeah, that's what it means to be Krishna conscious and still live in this material body and material world. It's consciousness. And their consciousness is purified. And then but they have to live out their destined time on that particular planet, and when it's done, then they transfer themselves to the spiritual realm. Many of them.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Now I get it. The consciousness is on the transcendental plane. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay, Maharaj, so we can now conclude the class. Thank you all for joining. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much for today's class. Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj